I don't know about you, but when I first started freelancing, pricing was definitely the thing that prevented me from sending that first proposal, that prevented me from launching my website sooner. It was so confusing. How am I sure that I am charging enough and that I'm not overworking myself? How do I know that I'm not charging too much and looking absolutely ridiculous when I send this proposal out? And it is still kind of very secretive. I think a lot of people don't talk about money, and that hurts us all, to be honest. But that's another story for another day. Today, I want to share what I know about creating freelance packages and charging appropriately for them. This is going to be slightly specific to social media managers, but regardless of what you do, I think you'll be able to learn something. So let's hop in. Okay, the first thing that you need to do is decide which services you want to offer. I think social media manager, and I'm guilty of this, social media manager is kind of like this catch-all term now for anyone who's involved with social media content. And truly, there are like so many different roles within that job. There are so many different functions of it. So you really need to find your kind of niche, find your sweet spot. And often when we talk about niching, we talk about an industry that we like to work with, and that's valid. And that's it's a different story for a different day. But I think this also can refer to your specific positioning and your specific offer in the market. When I first started freelancing full-time, one of the things that I was really a leader in was social video. I used my video training and my passion for video to create video content that lived on Facebook ads for my clients and Instagram before like Instagram Reels were a thing. So figure out what that's going to be for you. I think there are three real key functions of social media, or I guess I would say three kind of roles within the role of a social media manager. The first is platform management, which is what we typically think of when we think of social media manager. It's the person who's putting together the content calendar, who's scheduling the stuff out, who might be reporting on the results, who might be doing some engagement. The second piece is content creation, which, as we all know, in 2023 looks very different than when I started in 2012, 2013 ish. Back then, I was like creating quote graphics, and that was pretty much the extent of my content creation. Posting screenshots on Instagram, like, oh my gosh, those days were so wild. Today, that stuff doesn't fly, and content creation really is a big piece of the job. And then the last piece is advertising, pay-per-click, so Meta ads, YouTube ads, LinkedIn ads, Twitter ads, etc. That is another thing that you can offer. Now, I don't want you to be freaked out by this. You don't have to offer all of those things. In fact, I don't really recommend you offer all of those things, especially if you are not an expert or, a high performer in those areas. Pick out which ones you are, pick out where you can really help your clients see success. Create those as a package. Maybe you want to develop your ads experience on the side and offer that in a year or two, but you don't need to offer all those things right now. The point is, write down what you envision your package to look like, what you can actually offer, and then keep it moving. Step 2, you want to decide how much you need to earn. And I say need, not want, because for me, I think that helps me stay true to my pricing when I am realizing that no, this is like the cost of living. This is what I need to survive essentially. Now, of course, I could survive technically on a little bit less, but you do want to make sure that you are factoring in lifestyle expenses and that you are not just charging high enough to be able to sit in a room all day and not ever go out, not ever have fun, not have cable, not have Netflix. You want to make sure that your living expenses account for your current lifestyle, because if you leave a day job, if you leave a corporate job and you are miserable freelancing because you are just getting by on the absolute bare minimum, your business probably isn't going to succeed because you're not going to like it very much. You're not going to enjoy your life. And the point of starting a business is to enjoy your life more. At least that's why I did it. But don't just think about those things. You also want to factor in the cost of tools to actually do your job. Are you going to be using a social media scheduler like Metricool, or a graphic design tool like Canva, or a video editor like Final Cut? All of those things you want to make sure that you're factoring in to how much you need to pay to run your business every year. Also, any team members, are you going to need to hire any freelancers, a virtual assistant, a junior social media manager, anything like that. Taxes. I'm not an accountant. Talk to one when you first get started. But in general, I think most freelancers tend to save around 20 to 30%. I think 30% is where I would start of their invoices in a tax savings account. So at the end of the year, you are not, scraping up any amount of money you can to be able to pay that tax bill. So keep that in mind, figure out what that number is, get your annual goal written down somewhere, and then move on to step 3, which is you want to decide how many clients you're realistically able to take. Go back to number 1. You built out that package. So I'm going to create the content calendar. I'm going to schedule the content. I'm going to do engagement, and I'm going to do reporting. And I'm also going to be creating original content for one of those platforms. Maybe that's TikTok. So in your head, you should have an idea of your bandwidth. How many clients can you realistically serve and do that for every single month? And one way to figure this out is just by working with a mock client or just practicing using your own account. So by the time that I started offering freelance social media management services, I had already done it in the corporate world. And I also had a growing kind of personal brand on YouTube and Instagram. I had a blog and things like that. So I could kind of mock things up and pretend to be my own client for a week and just track my time and do that math to see, okay, for a week's worth of TikTok content, that might take me 7 to 10 hours a week, let's just say. So write that down, do that math, and then compare that with how much you want to work every week. If you only want to work 2 days a week, well, then you're probably only going to be able to take on one client. If you are willing to work 5+ days a week, of course, you're going to have more bandwidth. Also compare that with, are you looking to hire? Are there any team members? So you got to do that math for yourself, but come up with that number to figure out about how many clients you can realistically take on. And my advice to you is if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a growth plan to outsource, to bring on more team members, to automate stuff, do not overdo this. I would rather you charge a higher rate to each individual client than to get a ton of new clients in the door and then do a really poor quality job for all of them. I think that's something we all have probably experienced, is like that fast growth and realizing I actually need to let some people go, or you're getting a negative review because you're just not doing that high quality job that you would like to be doing. If you want a number, for me, my number when I was, working by myself with no additional help, honestly, for me, it was usually around 3 or 4 clients was where I felt comfortable. I could probably do 5, but usually at that point I was feeling stressed. I was working a lot of nights, working a lot of weekends, but your workflow could be different and you could be way more efficient than me. Who knows? Okay, so now that you have those numbers, you got to think about how much these packages are actually going to be. So a good place to start, I know a lot of other coaches, people, content creators advise against this, but I think you've got to start somewhere. So I use this as a starting point, is the hourly rate method, or thinking about how much your time is really worth. So let me pull up my calculator here. Let's just say that your package, your TikTok package that I just mentioned, is going to take you 7 hours per week times 4. That's per month. So that's going to take you about 28 hours per month. Come up with an hourly rate that your time is worth, again, as a starting point. I would say $50 to $100 per hour is where I would be targeting as a goal. I think when I first started social media management, I was charging about $25 per hour, which I will say was way too low to account for all of those other things that I had mentioned, taxes and team member. I mean, I definitely didn't have money to pay a team. So I think 25 was too low, and keep in mind that was several years ago. So let's just say 40 is a starting point. I think 40 is probably a decent starting point. So 28 times 40 would be about $1,100, $1,120, which sounds like a fair starting point. Now, the other thing you want to do though is you want to add in value to that mix. So TikToks, like if you're going to be in the TikTok, right? If you're going to be your faces in the TikTok, I'm going to add a small upcharge, not really small, maybe 10 to 20% onto that just for my likeness and my intellectual property, because you're giving that away. That brand can use your likeness basically forever. They're owning that content. So don't take that lightly. And definitely for all my UGC creators who are watching, please charge more. Charge more, and be sure to be charging for your likeness, because you don't want to just write that off. Also, some other things that can factor into the value conversation are you generating leads for the company? Are you having a direct tie to how much money they're making? Because if you're running Facebook ads and their lead generation campaigns, and you are literally collecting emails and phone numbers for their sales team to call, well, that's extremely valuable, especially if their service or product is expensive, you know? So if you have the potential to make this company a lot of money, definitely charge for that. Add an upcharge. Don't just use that raw hourly rate calculation. Use that as a starting point always. Then from there, you're just going to reverse engineer your revenue goal with your package rate and your number of clients that you want to take on. So let's just pretend that my revenue goal is I want to make $10,000 per month. And then I want to take on a maximum of 5 clients. Well, that's $2,000 per month that I need to be charging each client minimum. And then cross-check that with the math that we just did for your hourly rate and your packages. If you're finding it's falling short, so I said, that TikTok, if I said 1,100, what did I say? It was 1,120. If I add on that 20% surcharge for likeness, that still only has me at $1,344. Now, that's probably just for creation of TikToks. I didn't factor in the time to schedule the TikToks and do reporting. So I think realistically, that package would easily be $2,000, maybe even $2,500. And then you can start to do more math and have a little bit of fun. So if I do 10,000 divided by 2,500, if I raise that package rate, then that means I only need to take on 4 clients as opposed to 5. So you can kind of play around with the math, but just knowing in the back of my head, I'm not going to offer a service that's less than $2,000 if I want to be sure that I'm reaching my revenue goals. And honestly, that's what goes into pricing. I mean, you definitely will want to benchmark this a little bit. Now, I leave this to the end because you never want to have a race to the bottom. And that's what I see a lot of times happening when people look at what their competitors are doing. If I paid attention to what my competitors are doing, I would be giving everything away for free, because there's always going to be somebody. I remember when I first started freelancing, there was this guy who did a lot of local social media, and he was charging like $200 a month for his packages. There's no way that I could compete with that. And I did lose clients to that person. And guess what? Those clients always came back. And a lot of times I was too booked out with higher paying clients to take them back. So don't go there. Don't get in that race to the bottom. But you will want to just make sure that you are not, extremely high compared to the median, I guess I could say, of your competitors, or that you are not extremely low, because if everybody else is charging $2,500 for their packages and you're charging $500, it often sends a message about the quality of service. If I see that everybody else is charging $2,500, I'm going to be asking, well, how is it even possible that you're charging this low? So you want to make sure that you're not undercharging either. Of course, industry I already mentioned, and location too. If you are wanting to serve clients locally, this is going to be relevant. If you don't care so much about local factor, working with people in person or in your geographic area, I don't want you to let geography limit you too much. Obviously, different countries have different costs of living and all of that, so that might be relevant. But like for me, I live in the Midwest. If I were to charge Midwest prices only, I would have to charge a lot lower than I actually do ask for. Historically, most of my clients have been not in the Midwest. I actually don't work with a lot of clients who are local to me. A lot of them are in New York or, LA, California, where the cost of living is a little bit higher. So I'm able to charge a premium for my services. So don't let that limit you too much. But of course, if you're looking to work with local businesses, then you do have to, again, benchmark and make sure that you are not asking something that is just completely unheard of for your local area. All right, so I've got a free class for social media managers if you want to check that out. It's a social media starter class that will walk you through everything you need to know to get up and running as a freelance social media manager. I'm going to leave the link for that below. But otherwise, I hope that this video was helpful. Leave me a comment down below if it was. Be sure to subscribe if you're new here. I post videos twice a week-ish, and I will talk to you in my next one. Bye.